Hi, it's Nick S., the CD Man, and this is New Music Finds for September 21st, 2022. Got a lot of good stuff this week, including the best album of the year so far, and the best recorded album of the year, best sound quality-wise for the year so far, among others. We start off the video with Adrian Smith who performed with Iron Maiden, Richie Kotzen, who you might remember from Native Tongue by Poison in 1993. The single was Stand. And they have an album, really two EPs is one, Better Days and Nights. It has an EP that was released for Record Store, I believe one of them was, with 4 studio tracks, and then another 5 live tracks. If you like their first album, Smith Kotzen, you will like this one. Next up, a new group from the AAA side of things. We have Andrea, Spanish Villager No. 3. What I've heard of it so far is really good. Next up, I have Fletcher. You may remember her from the Duncan, I'm not going to remember his name, single. I'm not going to remember the name of the song either. Fletcher, but the name of the album is Fletcher, and the album is called Girl of My Dreams. Next up is the Proclaimers. You may remember them from their album Sunshine on Leaf from 1988. Big hit in 1993 with a song from the Benny and June soundtrack from that Sunshine on Leaf album, I'm Gonna Be 500 Miles. Well, the brothers have a new album out on the Cooking Vinyl label. It's called Dentures Out. Next up would be hold on, I'm going to save the 2 albums for a little bit later. Next up would be the new album by the country group Little Big Town. 16 brand new songs featuring All Summer, Rich Man, Better Love, and 3 Whiskeys and the Truth. Little Big Town and Mr. Sun. Next up would be one of the ones I recommend, and that's Creedence Clearwater Revival and at the Royal Albert Hall, April 14th, 1970. The album was The album was mixed and restored by Giles Martin and Sam O'Dell. Anything Giles Martin touches, as you know, he's the mixer for the Beatles, is absolute gold. This is no exception. The sound quality is phenomenal. Next up would be Ringo Starr. I was speaking of the Beatles. He's got a third EP out called EP3. And the single out from it is, or the featured track is World Gone Wrong, Ringo Starr. Next up would be Pink Floyd. They have another recommendation for the week. The 2018 remix of Animals is finally out. There was a dispute with with them over the liner notes. Now Pink Floyd has the album out, and it is a 2018 remix by James Guthrie of the classic 1977 album. There is a box set. Don't look for any extra additional material. Just alternate recordings like a Blu-ray audio and other things like that. Okay, next up is Starcrawler. They're on the rock side of things, and their She Said album came out this week. There we go. Starcrawler. Put my pile and put it away. Next, we have the next pile here. Next up is right here. Next pile. So we got next pile. Go. Next, another recommendation. Mumford & Sons. Don't know what's going on with them, but Marcus Mumford from Mumford & Sons has a solo album out. It's called Self-Titled, and it's on the Capitol label, and the single is Grace. Marcus Mumford and Self-Titled. If you like the Mumford & Sons sound, especially on the Wider Mind album, I think it's called Wider Mind, you will like this album. It's really good. Next up is Nav. Rapper Nav has a new album out. Demons Protected by Angels. I had to order this from a secondhand seller on Amazon, but it is out. Nav. Next up, a new album by classical pianist Lang Lang, The Disney Book, Deluxe Edition. It's on the Deutsche Grammophon label, and guests include Sebastian Yatra, Guga, John Baptiste, Milos, Gina Alice, which I believe is his wife, Andrea Bocelli on You'll Be in My Heart from Tarzan, among others. It's actually really nice stuff if you like the Disney songbook. Really, really, really nice stuff. Next up is a new album by country singer Mitchell Tenpenny on the Columbia label called This Is the Heavy. Next up is a new album by The Who, H.U. And they're in the mainstream or active rock sound, and they're a European, I believe they're European rock band, and their album's called Rumble of Thunder, The Who. Next up, a lady who had hits back as far as 1996, when Blue went to the top 10 of the country charts. She had hits like How Do I Live, Can't Fight the Moonlight, and 98 Juice. Since then, Leanne Rimes is back with God's Work. Featured on the album with Leanne are Ziggy Marley, Lettucey, Ben Harper, Sheila E., Mickey Guyton, Robert Randolph, Tata Vega, Aloe Black, and Leanne Rimes do a duet on there, and I do. Good stuff. This is an album not exactly new, but I've discovered it this week. It's country singer Breland, African-American singer Breland, Cross Country. It's on the Atlantic label, and the singles from the album so far are Praise the Lord with Thomas Rhett. Here, let me see, Praise the Lord with Thomas Rhett. Told You I Could Drink with Lady Antebellum, Lady A, and then For What It's Worth. The Lady A song and the For What It's Worth are great records. The Thomas Rhett song sounds very gospelish, country gospelish. Not my thing, but otherwise sounds good. I'm actually looking forward to it, hearing that. Okay. Death Cab for Cutie are back with a new album, Ben Gibbard and Company, on the Atlantic label. It's called Asphalt Meadows. The first single from the album called... I'm not going to try to remember the name of the single from it. First single from the album has already been number 1 on Billboard's AAA chart. If you're a fan of stations like The Peak in New York, you will love this music. Next up, Christian rockers We the Kingdom are back with a new album, simply called We the Kingdom. If you're a fan of K-Love Radio, which I'm not, you will like this album. Next up is a new artist. Her name is, let me get her name properly. Her name is Rina Sawayama. And the name of the album is called I can't even remember. It doesn't not say the name on here. The name of not saying the name on here, but Rina Sawayama is her name. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Her new album is out. Next up is the Heavy, another one on the AAA chart. Their debut EP featuring the single Miles and Miles is out now on the ATO label. I believe the ATO label is Dave Matthews' record label. Up next, if you like dance music and stations like KTU in New York, you will like Calvin Harris, Funk Wave Bounce Volume 2. And it features Potion with Dua Lipa and Young Thug, and Stay With Me with Justin Timberlake, Halsey, and Pharrell. Justin's having a great week of features as a digital title I bought this week. Also has Justin on it. One of the best in his genre in years. Next up is Michelle Branch. You remember her from hits in the early to mid 1990s. Before she went over to being country, her new album is The Trouble with Fever. Next up is Anashaka Shankar with the Metropole Orchestre with Jules Buckley and Manu Delago. Anashaka Shankar is Ravi Shankar's daughter and Nora Jones' sister, and she does traditional Indian music with a sitar and everything like that, but it's good stuff. Okay. The group Dayglow has released 2 albums digitally. This week they finally get them out on CD, on compact disc. Get the year on these things. From 2019, Fuzzy Brain, and from 2021, Harmony House. And it's leading up to a new album due out in October, Dayglow. Okay, now, before we move on, I'm going to give you the 2 albums of merit for this week, for the new releases. First up, the best recorded album of the year, best sound of the year, is a... let me get the information here. It is the... It's a Kevin Gray mastering of John Coltrane's classic album, Blue Train, The Complete Masters. Absolutely fantastic sound. Some of the best sound on an album. The best sound in an album for this year so far. And my album of the week, which is the best album of the year so far. And it's the only time this year that a true, Vault album has won album of the week. It's by my favorite artist, an artist I own over 150 albums from. Highlights on the album include a version of What's I've Got to Do With It, the Tina Turner classic, a version of Human Nature, the Michael Jackson classic, a version of Time After Time, two versions of Time After Time, Cyndi Lauper classic, a full live album, and 2 discs of studio recordings. It's Miles Davis, the Bootleg Series Volume 7, That's What Happened, 1982 to 1985. Absolutely fantastic. If you like 80s Miles, this is something not to be slept on. Absolutely incredible music. And next up, I did download a couple albums this week, and I did get them. I did burn them to CDs so I could have physical copies. We have Tyler Hubbard. He was one half of Florida Georgia Line. He has an EP out this week digitally, Dancing in the Country. Latin recording artist Romeo Santos has a new album out this week, Formula Number 3, and his single with Justin Timberlake is absolutely incredible. Best Latin song of the year so far. R&B vocalist Ari Lennox has an album out, Age, Sex, Location. Rapper Youngboy Never Broke Again has his whatever album of the year. He's released like 3 or 4 albums this year so far. Real or 2. And I went back and got Steve Lacy's album with Bad Habits, the big number 2 smash this week. Gemini Rights, Steve Lacy, and it actually is really good. One more new release I did get this week. If I can get it. Give me a second, I'll get it. And it's the album that I think is going to go to number 1 in the Billboard 200 if Billboard has a new number 1 album. And that is Blackpink. The album is called Born Pink. It is Blackpink's latest release, and it, as with most Japanese K-pop albums, it's in a box instead of in a regular CD case. Goes to my box list, even though only 1 CD is in here. Okay, I basically finished up my collection of CTI records in memory of Creed Taylor. Started off with Freddie Hubbard. I finally got a fresh copy of First Light. The album was from let me get the year on here. Doesn't say when it was from, but it was produced. Let me get my information. I can find out for you. Okay, the album was recorded in September of 1971. It's got Freddie Hubbard, Jack DeJohnette, Ron Carter, Richard Wines, George Benson, Airto, and Phil Krause. Very good stuff. It includes covers of Uncle Albert Halsey with Paul and Linda McCartney, Moment to Moment, a Henry Mancini, Johnny Mercer composition, Lonely Town from On the Town, Leonard Bernstein, Betty Camden, Adolph Green. Adolph, as many of you don't know, was married to What's My Line star. Oh, I'm not remembering her name. I'm not remembering her name. I'm not remembering her name, but his wife was a famous actress. I do know that much. Her name escapes me, but her wife was a famous actress. His wife was a famous actress. Okay, we also have Milt Jackson, Sunflower. It's got Herbie Hancock, Freddie Hubbard, Ron Carter, and Billy Corbin. The album was originally released in 1973. And features What Are You Gonna Do? What Are You Doing for the Rest of Your Life? A track that Barbra Streisand would cover. People Make the World Go Round, the old Stylistics classic. Title Cut, among others. Next up, we have Lalo Schifrin. Most people would know Lalo from the soundtrack to the television series Mission Impossible. He did the theme. This was a very disco-y jazz album. And it had Lalo with John Faddis, Joe Farrell, Pepper Adams, Patty Austin, Eric Gale, John Tropia, Anthony Jackson, Andy Newmark, and Don Alas. It had featured versions of Quiet Village, Moonglow, and Theme from Picnic, the theme from Jaws, which is the focus track from the album, Black Widow. Okay, next up is 2 albums by the great Grover Washington Jr. I've now completed my Grover Washington Jr. collection. The first is the older album, released in 1972. It's all covers, and it's called Inner City Blues. The album has covers of Inner City Blues, Make Me Wanna Holler, and Mercy, Mercy Me, The Ecology by Marvin Gaye, Georgia My Mind, the old Hoagie Carmichael standard, a medley of Ain't No Sunshine and The Man, and Theme from Man and Boy Better Days, Until It's Time for You to Go, a Buffy St. Marie composition that was recorded by Elvis Presley and made the charts from Elvis, and I Love You Porgy from Porgy and Bess. Good stuff. I got a later Motown Grover Washington Jr. album. Now this one I had to order from Germany, as it wasn't available for me to order on Discogs for the United States, and that's Reed Seed from 1978. The featured tracks on that album to me are Do Dat, the single that made the R&B charts, and an album cut called Reed Seed Trio Tune. Great stuff. It also does a cover of Billy Joel's Just the Way You Are on there as well. The last of my albums for the CTI Records is Hank Crawford. If you know the song Drive Slow, it's on albums by Kanye West and, remember his name, and Paul Wall, around 2005. The title cut was sampled on that song. It's also a cover of the 1973 song by Skylark, an old band with David Foster, the super producer. Anyway, here it is, Wildflower, Hank Crawford. And the album also features covers of Corazon by Carole King, You Got a Bad Girl, the old Sarita Wright written song, and Good Morning Heartache, the old song Diana Ross took to the top 40 in 1973. Good stuff. The album was released in 1973, and it also features Richard T., Bob Crenshaw, Idris Muhammad, and Joe Beck. Bob James was the arranger and conductor, and Creed Taylor was the producer. Next up, 2 albums that were left of center for me. First up, an album that I had, but the booklet was damaged. You'll notice in this one the booklet's not damaged. I did buy it and said I was going to rebuy it. That's the Platoon soundtrack. I got it mainly for the track Adagio for Strings, performed by the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra, conducted by George Dalrue. It also features classics by Smokey Robinson, Merle Haggard, The Doors, Jefferson Airplane, Aretha Franklin, Otis Redding, Percy Sledge, and the Rascals. That Adagio for Strings is has a prime spot in the movie and is really, really, really good. As you notice, the booklet is not damaged this time. The other one is an album that I found in my notebook. I'm trying to empty my notebooks, but in the notebook it was cracked. I had to replace the album. It's called Love for Levon, a benefit to Save the Barn. Tribute concert for Levon Helm, the great band drummer that died. On the album is Warren Haynes, Jorma Kaukonen, the Levon Helm Band, Mark Cohn, Mavis Staples, Alan Toussaint, John Prine, Garth Hudson, Joan Osborne, Bruce Hornsby, Jacob Dylan, Lucinda Williams, John Hyatt, David Bromberg, Grace Potter, Don Was, John Mayer, Ray LaMontagne, Dierks Bentley, Jesse Alexander, John Randall, Eric Church, Steve Jordan, Joe Walsh, Robert Randolph, My Morning Jacket, Roger Waters, G.E. Smith, who you may remember as the head of the SNL Saturday Night Live band back in the 1980s and the first half of the 1990s. And it's really, really good stuff. And I believe it comes with a DVD, if I'm not mistaken correctly. And now for the stuff that made the Billboard charts. We were up to numbers 120 and 119 mainly, but there might be a few straddling leftovers from there. We have reggae group Whirl Girl from the year on this. Whirl Girl from 1994. The single was called No Gunshot, Put Down the Gun. No, and it was sealed. As you can tell, it's still sealed. Next up, a CD single from Tori Amos. I wanted the remix, which is the main version that you would listen to back in the day. And it's called In the Springtime of His Voodoo. It was originally on the album Boys for Pele, which I already had. Next, we have Clay Walker, the country singer. His album from 1995 called Hypnotize the Moon. Singles from that album include Who Needs Your Baby, and I believe Hypnotize the Moon, but I'm not positive on that. Okay, next up we have our dance vocalist Ultra Nate. You may know her from the singles Found a Cure or Free, or also as a member of Stars on 45, who did that great cover of If You Could Read My Mind from the movie 54, the great movie about Steve Rubell and Studio 54, released in 1998. That featured Neve Campbell, Ryan Philippe, Selma Hayek, Breckin Meyer, Mike Myers in a very left-centered role. One Woman's Insanity. It's her only release on Warner Brothers Records, and the single from the album was Show Me. Next up, a single from, single from Mon AQ called Stay in Love, not available on an album. It was from 1996, and it's on the Matrix label. Okay, let's move on to the next pile. The next pile here we have, next pile we have these here. Let's see. We have rappers Helter Skelter on the Priority label. The name of the album is called Nocturnal. We have Sugar from the alternative scene. Album's called Filed Under Easy Listening. We have Lone Star. Remember Lone Star for songs like What About Now, Amazed, and I'm Already There. Lone Star released an album in 1995 called Lone Star. I believe this is like an Excelsior version. Excelsior is when you get it from Sam Goody's, where the booklets are all screwed up like that, but it's listenable. And I'm getting another copy anyway because I thought this wasn't arriving. So hopefully I'm getting another copy anyway. So hopefully the copy I get will be better. But the singles from the album include Tequila Talking and No News. One of the hardest songs to find on CD from the numbers I was collecting was Girl, You Hear Me Crying by Tony Dr. Edit Garcia featuring NV. On this album credited to NV. The NV album is about $50, $60. Didn't get it yet. I had 12-inch vinyl is on its way, but I chose to get High Power Presents Freestyle's Greatest Hits has it on there. It also has hits by Little Susie, including Take Me in Your Arms. And looks like a good compilation. Next up is a soundtrack to a movie called Silent Fall. On that album is a duet between Winona and Christian singer Michael English called Healing. Next up is Culture Beat. You may remember them from the song Mr. Vain at the end of 1993. They had an album out in 1995 called Inside Out. The single was called Inside Out. A new release that I seem to have skipped, jazz vocalist Samara Joy. The album's called Linger a While, and it actually is really, really good. I've heard this already. It's really, really good. It's mostly standards, including Misty, I'm Confessing That I Love You, Round Midnight, and Someone to Watch Over Me. Great stuff. Okay, next up, R&B artist POV. Album's called Handing Out Beatdowns. The single from the album featured Jade. You remember them? I Want to Love You. One Woman. Don't Walk Away. The single's called All Through the Night. POV. Next up, another country singer, John Barry, on the Liberty label, called John Barry. The album features the singles Your Love Amazes Me, among others. That was a big hit on the country charts. Rapper Young MC released three albums, one on Delicious Vinyl Records, Stone Cold Rhymin', and two on Capitol Records. The second Capitol Records album only had a minor chart single on the Bubbling Under charts. Didn't get it till now. Here's Young MC and What's Your Flavor. The single was also called What's Your Flavor. Next is another new artist, or an artist that I never had before. For You. Don't know much about them. I can't say much for them. It's called Just For You, and the single is called... I'm not even going to try to tell you what the single is. I don't even know what it is. For You. Next up is an EP by the Whirling Dervishes. They're known for one song and one song only, a cover of Thero Ravencroft's classic from the television series, hour-long television special, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. The album is called Grinch, and of course, their version of Your Me One, Mr. Grinch is on here. Very excited to hear that. Next up, a Christian singer, Kathy Tricoli. Kathy is known for her top 10 pop hit from 1992 called Everything Changes. She actually had a second album out of pop-sounding stuff called Kathy Tricoli, and the single from the album was, I think it's Tell Me Where It Hurts. I may be wrong on that, but there is a single. Okay, anyway. R&B vocalist Smooth covers Al Green's classic Love and Happiness for a single release. There we go, right there. And Mr. Moneylock has another single out, Throw Your Hood Up, featuring Above the Law. I believe Mr. Moneylock was a member of Above the Law. Okay, next. And the last pile of chart stuff includes the debut album from two members of Damn Yankees. We have Tommy Shaw of Styx and Jack Blades of Night Rangers, Shaw Blades. The name of the album from 1995 is called... What is it called again? It doesn't say here. It's called... Let me just get the name. Hold on. The name of the album is called Hallucination, and the single was called I'll Always Be With You. And the single is very acoustic sounding. Next up, another in the rock alternative vein, Throwing Muses. The name of the album is called University, and the single was called Bright Yellow Sun. Next up, an R&B vocalist, new to my collection, Keno Watson, True to the Game. The single from the album is called Bring It On, Keno Watson. Another new country singer to my collection, Kippy Brannon, I'd Be With You. She actually had two singles at the numbers I was looking for, Daddy's Little Girl, and I believe I'd Be With You, but I'm not positive on that. And last but not least, The Temptations, and an album from 1998 called Phoenix Rising. The single was called Stay, and it actually samples their 1965 classic, My Girl. And at this point, the Temptations were... Let me get the list out here. At this point, the Temptations were Harry McGillberry Jr. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Terry Otis Williams, Barrington Scott Henderson, a.k.a. Bo, and Tyson. Good stuff there. And that song, Stay, is actually really, really good. I won't say much else. It was really, really good. Anyway, that's New Music Roundup for, September 21st, 2022. I'm Nick S., the CD Man. This is the CD Man channel. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the dingy to get notified, and I'll see you back here next Wednesday for New Music Finds. A program note before I leave. The programs on a regular basis are going to be as follows. On Mondays, you get another year in Billboard Charted Albums Chart. I'll show off my collection of number one albums. Next week will be 1972. On Wednesday will be what New Music Finds. And on Friday will be what's coming out for the new releases. There'll be scattered other videos in there, but those are the ones that are definite. Anyway, I'm Nick the CD Man. Have a great day, and keep listening to your physical media.